60 Minutes Rewind.
It's one of the guiding principles of journalism. The reporter should never become the story. Every now and then, though, you find a reporter's story too good not to tell. In 2018, Dave Kindred received the PEN ESPN Lifetime Achievement Award for literary sports writing. It was intended as a final bit of punctuation on a gilded career. Little did the presenters know, Kindred was still churning out column after column, sweating deadlines, interviewing athletes after exhilarating wins and deflating losses. Kindred, though, wasn't setting up shop as he had for 50 years at Super Bowls, World Series games, Olympics, and title fights. No, he was scribbling away 3 rows up the bleachers inside high school gyms of central Illinois. And it would make for some of the most fulfilling work of Kindred's career. For more than a half-century, Dave Kindred abided a simple sports writing rule: be a reporter first and a writer second. On the sidelines or the back nine, he wanted to be there, find the story, and then paint a picture using words. Let's do the sports writer equivalent of back of the baseball card. Give me the numbers here. How many World Series have you been to?
I became a columnist in '69, so went to almost all the World Series after that.
How many Super Bowls have you been to?
40-something.
What about the Masters?
I've been to 52 Masters. First in 1967 and missed 1986 when nothing happened except Jack Nicklaus won. And that's the Red Smith Award.
Unlike the athletes and teams they cover, sports writers aren't ranked. There's no scoreboard or leaderboard.
And this is Dan Jenkins' medal.
Oh, that's great.
Won that too.
Still, even in this subjective line of work, there are perennial all-stars and Hall of Famers. Say Sports Illustrated's Frank DeFord and Red Smith of the New York Times, whose Sunday column would arrive by train near Dave Kindred's childhood home of Atlanta, Illinois, a speck alongside Route 66. Kindred would race to the station, get a copy of the newspaper, and read every word.
I studied them. One of the things I've learned about writing is find out what you like, then figure out why you like it, and then do that.
So why'd you like it?
I like the rhythm of his words. Red didn't use, kind of sports writer hackney words. He used words that had a music to them.
You're here in the middle of Illinois and you're reading these dispatches about sports, but from all over the world?
Yeah, took me out of that second floor bedroom, put me in the press box at Wimbledon.
Kindred wrote what he saw and became one of the most influential sports columnists and authors of a generation. Name sports icons from the last half-century, and rest assured Dave Kindred's covered them. To him, though, one athlete was the greatest. In 1966, Kindred was a cub reporter at the Louisville Courier-Journal, ordered by his boss to go find the outgoing ascending local fighter. You meet Muhammad Ali for the very first time. That seems like a pretty big pivot point in your career. How'd you think of it at the time?
At the time, I just thought of it, this is a good story. This is fun. Guy's a heavyweight champion of the world.
It marked the first of more than 300 interviews with Ali, who christened Dave Kindred Louisville, forever Ali's hometown reporter. Kindred followed Ali's entire career, an entomologist, as it were, writing about the butterfly and the bee, sometimes in the strangest of places.
I was trying to do a column on his entourage. Meanwhile, his suite, as always, was full of people. He waves at me, Louisville, come in here. So I go in there and I standing next to the bed. He raises up the corner of the sheets and says, get in. Well, I don't know what you do if the heavyweight champion of the world tells you get in, but I did. And one of us had on clothes.
He saved that anecdote for a 2006 dual biography he wrote about Muhammad Ali and Howard Cosell. Dave Kindred moved on from Louisville to the Washington Post, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and the Sporting News. Kindred became one of those Hall of Famers. His writings are preserved in the library of his alma mater, Illinois Wesleyan University, where we unearthed this gem. After the death of the NBA player Pete Maravich, you wrote, an inelegant collection of bones, the skinny 6'5" Maravich flailed his way down court, elbows and knees, sharp angles rearranging themselves, an Ichabod Crane on the fast break, and you dared not blink.
That's pretty good.
Kindred wrote that line 33 years ago. Where'd you come up with that?
No idea, other than, that's what he looked like. You want the reader to see the moment the way you see it.
He would have kept at it, but for the sad and steady decline of both print media and the role of the general columnist. In 2010, Dave Kindred and his wife Cheryl, high school sweethearts in the 50s, figured it was time to return home to the flat abs of America, central Illinois. They'd sit by the pond outside their log cabin, read and watch sunsets. And when the cold whipped in winter, they, like a lot of folks downstate, would repair to the warmth of a local high school gym for entertainment. In their case, it was in Morton, Illinois, next town over from Peoria, to watch the Lady Potters.
Went to a basketball game, and like the old war horse, I couldn't sit there and not write about what I saw.
Kindred and his wife sat in the bleachers alongside parents, grandparents, and high schoolers, and his professional instincts kicked in. He offered to cover the Lady Potters for the team's website and post his accounts on Facebook as well.
Search the post, thank you very much, let's go!
But first, he wanted the blessing of the team's coach.
He's, Muhammad Ali and Olympics and Masters golf and Super Bowls and Bobby Knight, and here I am, a small town girls basketball coach. It's about patience, take care of the ball.
Bob Becker has been head coach of the Lady Potters since 1999. After some apprehension, who wants to get second-guessed by a hard-boiled journalist, he bought in.
After that initial shock and then getting to know who he really was, after a little bit of research, we've got the Michael Jordan of sports writing falls in our lap.
The scribe who once described an NBA player as Ichabod Crane on a fast break now called his new subjects the Golden State Warriors with ponytails. And there was something about girls' basketball that particularly enthralled Kindred.
I think I owed a little bit to Title IX. The women athletes, I loved seeing them play. And why should they be ignored in high school athletics? The men's game is vertical, the girls' game is horizontal. They have to master the fundamentals. So it's much more fun to watch them. And plus, they don't pout, they don't bitch.
For now, COVID has shrunk the season and the crowds in the Potterdome. But Kindred's there, his gaze fixed on the action, listening in on huddles.
But you gotta fight and scrap and hustle.
After the buzzer, he's outside the locker room for a quote.
So they had a bounce play.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Which one?
Albeit self-imposed, there is a deadline. So after driving home, he ends the day, as ever, in front of a keyboard.
People stay up after the game waiting for that article to come out. They won't go to bed until they get to read it. So he's got deadlines to meet. He's not getting paid anything but eventually it turned into a box of Milk Duds.
You heard right. Kindred's negotiated compensation?
Thank you, Rocky. I said, look, I'm a professional sports writer. I should be getting something for doing all this stuff for you. And he measured my talent and experience and good looks and said, how about a box of Milk Duds every game? And I said, deal.
You drive a hard bargain, Kindred. Then in 2015, well, you might say the Milk Duds would turn into lifesavers. Apart from the sugar rush, what do you get out of this?
Well, the first 5 years, it was just the fun. Then things started happening as they do late in life. Had a grandson who died. My mother died 3 months later. The next year, my wife had a catastrophic stroke that left her an invalid who cannot communicate. So even in the hospital, one of the players' mothers, I was debating whether I should leave my wife in the hospital unconscious and go to a Lady Potters game. And the mother said, you got to go. You got to go. And she was right. I went, and what started as fun became life-affirming. It's what I am. It's what I do.
You're someone who is precise with his words, and you said, this team saved me.
This team did save me. This team became a community, became my friends. My life had turned dark. They were light. And I knew that light was always going to be there, 2 or 3 times a week.
In return, Dave Kindred would chronicle the Lady Potters' 4 recent state championships. First flex, let's see. State champs and Lady Potter alums Josie Becker, J.C. Warham, and Courtney Jones. When you guys were here playing, did you appreciate how cool a story this was?
At the time, I didn't think like anything of it. Now looking back at it, it's actually really amazing that we've had this legendary writer come and capture all this special time that we've had in high school.
What was it like getting interviewed by him?
I was so nervous. I literally didn't really know he was that famous of a writer.
And by the time I finally got interviewed, I was so excited. It's like, this is my chance. I've finally done good enough. I get to talk about myself.
Do you remember what you said?
No. I think I blacked out, to be honest.
That's okay, since Kindred keeps all his notes, including quotes, and turns it into a commemorative book he publishes most seasons.
I've written more than 300 games, probably more than 500,000 words. I've written more about that girls' basketball team than I've written about anything, including Ali.
The story will continue after this.
Dave Kindred going home and covering high school hoops is something akin to his former Washington Post colleagues Woodward and Bernstein uncovering corruption of small-town zoning boards. The Morton players appreciate the expert journalism, as well as his awareness of the stubborn inequality between male and female athletes, as witnessed at this year's NCAA basketball tournament. Katie Krupa, Caitlin Cowley, Raquel Frakes, and Maggie Hobson are current Potters. Where are your banners? Where's the big hanging banner that you get when you win a state title? If the boys had won a state title,
It would be everywhere.
The town would literally celebrate for weeks.
do you guys all read his write-ups?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, I get a lot of texts from my grandparents and relatives, and it's always, I read Dave's article, heard you had a good game, or heard it was a physical game, or whatever.
I think it's so special that someone that is so good at what he does wants to be here and write about us.
He's just kind of always there with us. He grows with us, especially this season.
Why do you think he's doing this?
I think it's just his passion. Like, basketball is our passion.
Man, I agree with Rock. I think it's his passion, you know. I think he wants to be doing it for as long as he possibly can, too.
Come on, KO.
She's right. Dave Kindred, now 79, knows that pitchers lose their fastball. Basketball players lose a step. Boxers, not least Ali, lose their crispness. The life cycle of the writer is more generous. Kindred recently finished a book that celebrated the life, and mourned the death, of his grandson Jared. When Tiger Woods was injured in a car accident last month, Golf Digest leaned on Kindred for a column. Then there are his dispatches about the Lady Potters. I want to read you something we found that you wrote from the first game of this year. It was moving to us. We've lost so much that was so long familiar. Then the Potters gave us a gift. They played a game. Then you wrote the joy that high school athletes feel when every trip down the court is a trip toward possibility. Joy in these days, so long without joy.
Yeah. That's why I do it. That's why I do it.
Sports writing right there.
Writer's right.